What's up, the internet? It's Kyle. Welcome in. This is Talking Shop. I haven't been around in a while. You haven't seen me in a while. So that's a thing. But I am here with two guys who I've wanted to talk to since I first heard about their book. And I've become really big fans of them since that point. They are the hosts of the Nintendads podcast, which you should go over and subscribe to, which is a very great podcast. Even if sometimes I don't know what's happening, but I think that's the point. The Nintendads podcast, and they are the creative team behind the new book out from SourcePoint Press, out this week, called Darling. So let me welcome in Todd Hunt and Michael Fixture. Tell me your last name. How do I say your last name?
Fleizach.
Fleizach.
Yeah,
yes.
Fleizach.
So like a fly, and then the guy from Saved by the Bell.
Totally.
Yep.
I've described it that way before. Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just one quick point I just want to add on to your intro, which was lovely, but we are the Super Nintendads.
Oh, so you're not just the original Nintendo, you're the Super Nintendads.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we're actually the Super Nintendads Entertainment Podcast.
Right.
Not to make it too confusing, but you didn't realize the Nintendo came out with a system called Super Nintendo Entertainment System to play on the whole title, because
So
we
you're
don't just
Snap.
talk video games. We talk about we're Snap.
I love
That's
it.
exactly
I
right.
love it.
That's what
I
the
love
shirt's
it.
going to say now.
No, I'm right on top of that.
Yep. Go ahead. You can have it. So let's
Snap.
let's start at the beginning. How did you guys come to work together?
We've worked together on a few things before. Todd and I originally met in London while we were abroad in college, which is like lifetimes ago, although Todd doesn't age. I'm like fat and bald, and Todd looks like he's like in 7th grade now. We met abroad. Todd was doing some theater there. I helped him run lines and learn his part for the play. It was super cool. And we just stayed up late talking about projects and things we loved: video games, movies, homestarrunner.com. And that really dates us.
I drove.
I drove. You know exactly what year we're talking about.
Right. I wore my Trogthor t-shirt.
Oh,
yesterday.
nice.
Oh, nice.
So.
Yeah.
It's right in my
Longest
wheelhouse.
Doors. Yep.
There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember something called Flash. It was a big thing in the early 2000s.
Right. So we started there, and then we kept in touch. We live near one another. We'd chat every now and then, get together for a drink. I had a band for a while. Todd would pop in and check it out. But we always wanted to kind of tell a story, work on stories, work on books. We tried writing for television for a while. It didn't work out. We had a couple of pilot script ideas that just really never really wrapped up. We get like close to the end, and then just they would crumble and we'd fall apart. But then he started writing comics. He wrote a comic called The Secret Adventures of Houdini, which is super cool and all about Todd, you can tell him what it's about if you want to run it down real quick. But it's just kind of like Houdini in the later years of his life, running all kinds of secret magical missions.
Yeah, historical fiction, essentially. Just trying to make it seem like that last year of his life, he was actually solving kind of supernatural mysteries and hiding the fact that the supernatural existed from the world to protect it. But I came into a real impasse with one of the new books we were writing. And I said, let me reach out to Mike, because we work so well together, and see if he can help. And we just kind of brainstormed for 2 nights, just kind of Post-its on the wall, and figured it all out. And we were like, oh, this works. We can do this together. This is all clicking. All of the parts that weren't clicking with the TV and film stuff, it's all coming together here. So we knew that we would eventually make a comic together. It was really kind of just only a matter of time at that point.
Yeah.
So, okay, I have several questions from that story. One, what was the play?
The play I did in London was a Jean Cocteau play called The Infernal Machine, which was essentially a retelling of Oedipus.
Todd had to wear a cape.
No, I had to wear a sarong. I chose to wear the cape. that was a fashion choice.
The cape was an acting choice.
Yes.
Todd's always acting, so yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting play, and I did actually have a little bit of difficulty wrapping my head around certain parts of it. So Mike was a really big help to just kind of drill through scenes over and over and over again, which was entirely helpful to getting my head around that script. Yeah. And then Mike and I actually wound up writing our own plays together. That was kind of the bridge between Houdini and Darling. We had a chance to write 2 plays for a really great theater group. And I'm really happy that we did, because we talk about all the time. We really think that our dialogue is true and genuine. And if you speak it out loud and not just read it, it will ring true. It will sound like genuine, natural dialogue. And we sharpen that tool with playwriting. So that was a really important part to us being able to say, should we have this much dialogue in this part? And give us the confidence to say, yeah, of course we should, because this is the story we're telling and we know how to do it right. So that was a really important part of our process.
And then Mike, what kind of band?
Garage rock. It was like, we kicked off like circa, like the Strokes. So it was like kind of like Strokes, a little bit like the Hives, a little bit like, if you're going back even farther, it was like, the Kinks. It's just dirty kind of garage rock.
Awesome.
And my
brother
brother used to be in the band. Yeah. We actually, we had a small indie contract. We never made any money, but we had a small indie contract, and we went on a small tour, and we actually played in Detroit, which I think is at maybe the United States' oldest bowling alley or something like that.
Cool.
I've been to shows at that venue.
Oh,
cool.
yes. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I saw Jack White there.
Whoa, that's
that's cool.
That's a good show.
Yeah,
to see there.
he wasn't supposed to be there, but he showed up.
Even cooler.
And everybody's like, Jack White is here. And the band that was supposed to play refused to go on.
Oh, Jesus. How
so
am
he
I
just
gonna
got
top
up.
this?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if he shows up and he's in the place, I don't, he
Right.
might as well
It's
do
like-
his thing.
Right. Like it's like I imagine it's like doing stand-up and somebody's like, Eddie Murphy's here. It's like,
You know what? The one time I almost did stand-up was in New York City, and it was going to be the first time I ever did stand-up, and someone said, "Oh, Chappelle's here. He's going to be doing a set." And I went, "I'm out."
You forget it.
I forget it. This isn't the time to open this career. And then I never did it.
Grand opening, grand closing.
So tell everyone about Darling. I know the story is it's a big story, and it's got a lot of depth. It's got a lot of stuff that goes with it. So
That's true.
Tell everyone about Darling, and then if you would explain why you chose, other than you kind of just explained it, but tell us why you chose comics as a means to tell this story.
Sure. So Darling, as simply as I can put it, an 8-year-old girl goes missing, and a down-and-out addict tries to find her in one of the most dangerous times in New York City that there's ever been, the early 80s. He sees her as a way to kind of become a hero, like a very simple quest that he thinks he can get done, and because he kind of knows a lot of people in the underbelly and in the drug scene, he thinks like, oh, I'll once he kind of trips into it a little bit, he's like, oh, well, I'll find this girl, and my ex-girlfriend will forgive me, and I'll be a hero to everybody, and I can fix my life in one fell swoop. I'll be all over the news. I'll be the best guy in the city. And it doesn't exactly go that way. It gets very complicated. The whole story is planned to be told over one night. So, and it's going to be somewhere between 16 and 20 issues right now. The first 5 are done, 4 are out this year. And we're currently working on the other ones to be released next year. That's kind of what the story is about. And then kind of Francis Darling, that's why it's called Darling. Francis kind of stumbles into this like drug war and the reason behind the kidnapping. And then the missing girl's identity becomes more and more apparent kind of as the story goes on. Why we chose comics Now that's weird. I don't really know why we chose comics other than.
I think I do.
Okay, you want to take a shot?
Yeah, when Mike and I first started talking about Darling, we actually did kind of bandy about how it would best be told. I think we always knew it was going to be comics, but the ideas for different things were there. And because the story becomes so fantastical, and we wanted to tell this story with immediacy, comics were the best way to get it done now. And in our control. Right. We knew the artist that we wanted the minute we decided on New York City. Dave Mims, who is our artist and contributes as much to this comic as the writing does. We knew we had that talent, and we knew that anything that we could create could be put on the page. Nothing could stop our imagination. Right. So there was no budgets that we needed to worry about. There was no studios we needed to deal with. Anything that we could see, we knew Dave could make happen. And that has been more true and more true with every issue that we've done. We also have a great letterer that is able to really make our words connect to Dave's art. And all of that, when we knew we had that in place, and we had that in place really early, luckily, we said, this has to be a comic. And I mean, the sky's the limit from where it can go, but the story will always be a comic in our heads. And I think that's why we were so quick to decide that it should be a comic, because it was in our control and it was something we knew we would be able to pull off.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said and right on the nose. I think that with a story this personal, and we can get into more of that in a minute, but with a story this personal, it, like, I don't know, to give it to some Hollywood asshole, or to give it to someone who's going to run away with it and like make 900 changes. And I'm like, no. Like, this is something that I kind of have to tell and I kind of have to work out. And Todd has been great in just making all of that better and understanding kind of that was the mission to begin with. And really, like, the, maybe sometimes where I get too far up my own ass, Todd can bring it back down to reality, and it, we work complementary that way. But like, other than Todd and Dave, and Zach, our letterer, like, there's not too many people we trust to really mess around with any of this stuff. And if it became TV, or if it became anything else other than, the only thing that's smaller than, I guess, this is if I had just written a book.
Yeah.
Which I've also thought about and also might be in the cards. But yeah. It's really just about, like, we wanted to see what we wanted to see come to life. We didn't want someone going like, hey, what do you think about, this person for this role, or this guy, this person will help you out. And it's like, we made what we made, and we walked around Comic-Con one year before the world shut down and everything went to shit. And we handed out 100 copies of a comic that we made look as professional as possible and had it printed up. And it had a different title at the time. And we just dropped it in a bunch of submission boxes, shook a bunch of hands, and took a bunch of cards. And then we kind of put it away for a long time. And we got a kind of an email out of nowhere being like, hey, if you guys still want to make this thing, we'd be happy to do it over at SourcePoint. And that was great, because SourcePoint was really high on our list of places we wanted to go, just because we liked their booth. We liked the vibe of the people that worked there. We met Travis there. We handed him a book, actually, directly. So, and we had a quick convo with him. You get a very genuine feeling from that team. So we really liked that team, and we were like, man, that'd be cool to be with those dudes. But then, it was like radio silence forever until they told us they emailed us out of nowhere about a year or two later. And strangely enough, on my brother's birthday, which is really weird. I remember that. Todd, remember how weird that was?
Yep. I was asleep.
Yeah, you were. I remember. We have a joke about all the good stuff. All advancements happen when Todd goes to sleep, almost like an RPG or like Minecraft or like something. It's like, you want to rest now and save your game, and blah blah blah.
Right. You wake up and the airships have come into town.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
You missed the festival.
The town festival.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess that's a lot of rambling, but hopefully we answered your question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you said it the way you said it. I just heard a story from Malcolm Gladwell about he had written a screenplay for a pilot script, and he's Malcolm Gladwell, so every studio wants to take his call,
right?
And he writes this outbreak story, essentially but it's about two black virologists in a hospital in Atlanta, and the studio's like, we'd love to make it, but can you add more car chases?
Sweet. I agree.
He's like, it's totally not what like,
right.
Yeah.
It's an outbreak movie. Why are we adding car chases to an outbreak? So I really appreciate kind of the way you said it. Is like, this is the way to make it the way we want to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not opposed to it doing or it becoming what it eventually will become or wants to become. I mean, I think that will be, kind of only time will tell at this point. But at that point, we will have told the story the way that we want to. And then it can go and become something if it does. But at least the story we wanted to tell has been told. Right. You know what I mean? That was important for us to make sure that it was in our control for the first time the story was told.
It's making it this way seems to have really fit well for you guys overall. So how did you originally come to be fans of comics? And then we'll come back to kind of more about what the story is and where it comes from.
Sure. Yeah, I was a fan of comics ever since I was a kid. My older brother was a big fan of comics, and as younger brothers tend to do, I thought everything he did was great and cool and amazing and something I wanted to do. So I kind of became, I was kind of born into liking comic books. And that was back at a time where you could actually subscribe to comics and have them delivered to your house, which was lovely. They weren't bagged though, so rainy days were not great for New Comic Book Day back then. And a friend of mine who grew up right around the corner from me, named Michael Gorman, who's on the podcast we do every now and then, he and I decided to start writing comics when we were about 10. We wrote a comic called The Secret World of Kevin Darby. And it was the first thing we ever kind of put pen to paper and created our own thing of. And it is great. And it was really good for what it was at that time. And obviously, we've never done anything with it, but it sparked this idea of, I have a story in my head. I can put it out there in the world. And it was kind of the first time that I did that, and it worked and it was successful. I mean, in a sense that it then existed after we did it, not what just didn't live in my head anymore. And from there, I just became kind of a lifelong comic fan. And I went from kind of the bigger studios when I was younger to the smaller studios when I was in my 20s to the more fringe stuff that's out there now. Like I really love the comics I really love right now are the ones that have very little dialogue, like Mouse Guard and Hedra and Stuff of Legend, things where the art really moves the story along. And one of the things I always say, Mike and I talk about often, is that Dave Mims's art is so good that if we took all of the dialogue and all of the lettering out of the book, you'd probably get about 60% of the story just from the art. And that's something that I love about Dave. And that's something that we really tried to make happen, especially with my love of comics that use very minimal words and they show instead of tell. So that's kind of...
I realized, Todd, I think that might be the reason behind Finch. Maybe we just picked up on that early and leaned into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a mute character who is probably the big hero of the whole story.
Yeah. And for me, I don't know that it's so much comics as much as it's stories and just books in general. Bookstores, and this includes comic book stores. It's like, for me, it's like taking Xanax or something. It's like it reduces my anxiety the minute I walk into any kind of bookstore, because I feel like there's people that have written things that I feel or that I think, or that the answers are somewhere in a book, or there's something for me to connect with. There's like friends, like, I don't know. I've always had this like immediate reduction in anxiety anytime. So I love walking into comic book shops. I love, mostly I'm drawn to just art and covers. So I don't have any specific titles to check. I've actually just started picking up certain ones again, just based on covers and based on inspiration for our book moving forward. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know that I've had quite as long of a love of comics as Todd has, but I've always liked them, and I've always picked them up here and there. I'll take a break for a couple of years. I'll get back into it like a fever, and I'll buy a bunch and I'll rip through them.
You make up for it. You make up for your lost time.
I do, and I prefer to buy collections and big omnibus versions of stuff. It's just it's the equivalent of Netflixing a comic.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
So that's
for me that's record stores. Like I go into a record store and I just okay.
Right.
Yeah,
right. I'll go to the record store down the street like when I'm having a stressful day, just because I know nobody can call me there.
That's great. And, I love that.
Well, and then it's like I'll wind up spending way more than my budget allots for records, and then I'll come back and I'll listen to those records while people call me. It just resets my brain just enough.
It's a detour from the calls.
Yeah, right. And exactly. It's like I said, it's a reset from my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Michael, you've alluded to it a couple of times, and as much as or as little as you feel like sharing, I know that this book has a very personal story.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, tell the people kind of what that is and what that's about.
Yeah. So I think the kind of the spark that lit the fuse that blew up the powder keg that became Darling. I lost my brother to drug addiction over 10 years ago now. God, I think it's been over 10 years. It's been a long time. And it's crazy how you just lose track. You get so used to saying it a certain way. But I lost him to heroin, and he struggled with it for a very long time, like longer than, I don't know. He probably OD'd a lot of times. He was resuscitated a lot of times. And the last time I was with him the night before he died, and he was actually had a good stretch of months. He was clean for a very long time. And then, I think he had a new job and a new apartment and everything. And he slipped up once, and sometimes that's all it takes. So, he, working through when you lose someone to a death that way, tragically and young, and also to drugs, to something you don't understand, standing on the outside of that, not understanding that world, it's difficult. You feel a lot of things. You're angry. You feel shame. You don't want people in town knowing, because my brother was very popular. Like everyone, he was a big athlete in high school, and he went to, big colleges. He had a lot of friends. So there were a lot of people around to hear this news. And I just remember being like, where's the hole that I can crawl into and I can just ride this out, like I just want to throw my phone in the river and just, I was getting emails from people that I'm like, I don't like, I appreciate it, but I don't want to hear from you right now. And it was weird. And I had to work through all this stuff. And so two things happened after he died. One, he left me boxes and boxes of journals that I have from cleaning out his place. And it was all about some of it was song lyrics and poetry. Some of it was letters to love interests in his life at the time. Some of it was just like, daily journals about struggling with addiction, or reminders to show up for appointments to places, and just boxes of them, and sketches and other things. And I started to go through them to kind of work, just as a way of working through and missing him and wanting to get closer to him and understand all this. And, so that was one thing. I started to kind of want to do something with all that energy, all that, that ball of crap that was just kind of building up in my stomach. And I was like, I need to turn this into something and do something with it. So it was either going to be like, I don't know, some kind of weird art collage, or it was going to be a story, or it was going to be but it had to be something, because he couldn't just be dead, and I couldn't just have these journals, and it couldn't just be nothing. So I started to write down how I was feeling and work through a lot of things as I was doing this, and it kind of turned into a weird story. So that's one thing. That's part A. And part B is that at his wake, which was really hard, it started out in one very kind of small room, and before I knew it, there were tons of people there, and they had to throw open the doors to an extra room. And then I was like, wow, a lot of people wanted to show up, and a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time, and a lot of people that loved him. I guess he had a lot of love in his life. And then I was totally shocked when 2 buses pulled up, and it was people from different halfway houses and rehab centers and facilities that just wanted to pay their respects, and also some of them specifically saying that they just wanted to meet me because he talked about me all the time and he loved me a lot. And a lot of them had, formed really tight bonds with him. Like, oh, I was writing music with your brother, or we were working on, sketches and like art and weird stuff. Like, and he had all these, a whole nother life I didn't know or understand. And, when you come face to face with that, like a lot of the hate melts away. A lot of like the hatred that builds up and the anger kind of, it goes away. And you realize there's a lot of love in the room, and that probably, and I recognize this, in the kind of the later years of his addiction, that, sometimes it's him and sometimes he's behind the wheel, but sometimes you look at him and you're like, the drugs are behind the wheel. There's no one behind the wheel. Like I can tell when he's, when he's working on something or when he's planning to score. I got so familiar with his behaviors. So between the journals and the funeral and wanting to kind of tell a story and starting to work on Houdini a little bit with Todd, we were working on book 2 that never came together. Darling was born, and it was kind of something I wanted to create as a time capsule to remember everything I loved about my brother. And Francis Darling was his stage name when we were in a band. His real name is Frank. And he called himself Francis Darling because he always fancied himself like one of the Darling children in Peter Pan. And he loved the idea of going to Neverland and never growing up. He wanted to be a rock star forever. He wanted to be young. He never wanted to grow up. He wanted to dye his hair, and he wanted to be crazy. And he proved that every time he ever went on stage, anytime we were in the band. Ultimately, we had to kick him out because of his problem. But, I loved him till the day he died. I still love him, and I wanted to make something special, because my memory sucks. Todd and I joke about that all the time. I have the worst memory of anyone that I know.
It's true.
So it's true. And I knew that, he was my only sibling. So if I didn't put these things someplace, I probably wouldn't remember them. So the way he acts in the first book, a lot of that is, that's not bullshit. That's kind of how my brother was. Todd and I have started describing Francis in the book as a little bit like an Aladdin character. It's kind of like, someone who's stealing and breaking the rules, but someone that you're ultimately rooting for. And we talked a lot about Disney when we were making the first issue, because we wanted people to understand that it was a journey of a character, and there was going to be some fantastical things that were going to happen. Yeah. So that's kind of the personal thing behind Darling. The only other thing is that Todd and I also realized that we wanted to make a difference with the story as much as we could. So a portion of sales we're donating to programs that help people struggling with addiction and to kick drugs, essentially. So, we're donating, and SourcePoint has agreed to match our donations, which is awesome. That's one of the reasons why we love SourcePoint. They were on board we didn't have to twist anyone's arm for that. No. They were just like, of course. So it is very heavy and very loaded. It's an exercise in grief. What everyone's watching, if you're reading the book and you're flipping through the pages, you're watching me work through something, and you're watching my buddy Todd help me out. That's kind of what it's definitely an exercise in working through grief as I go through things and think about what his moments were, what his last moments were, what he wished would have happened, what his life would have been like. It's a difficult thing, but I'm really glad that we're doing it. And I'm really glad that it's finally starting to get into people's hands.
Yeah. I think it's actually really interesting. I mean, this isn't going to make a tremendous amount of sense to the readers and listeners for a year. I'm sorry about that. But over the past few months of Mike and I really being out there promoting the book, I think Mike has started to deal with things in a different way. And it's really interesting how that's shaping the next set of stories. We have some scenes coming up with some of the newer characters everyone will be introduced to in issue 2 and issue 3 that it's really interesting how much of a work in grief this is. But it's also really interesting just how much Mike's memories of his brother and working through this process is informing the story and how much it all works. So it's really exciting to see where this story is heading. I think for the readers, especially after only having issue 1, which really focuses on the heart of the story, but then the world really blows out in issue 2, where we start to see all the influences that Mike and I really wanted to start telling about. When we started telling this story, these are the influences we wanted to share. And it goes everywhere from Alice in Wonderland to Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki. Wizard of Oz is a huge influence in it. And again, we talk about Disney. They really know how to set up a movie. They know how to introduce you to characters very quickly and make them charismatic very quickly. So we took a lot of pages out of that. But yeah, I think it's been a really interesting journey from that perspective.
So something about myself, and I'm an open book like this. I have 6 years, 7 months, and 15 days.
It's great.
Good for you.
And so reading issue 1, there were a lot of really complex emotions that I went through.
Sure.
The number of people that I've lost who weren't able to do what I did and get the help I got. And then the having been there several times where you've got 4 months and well, not anymore,
right.
Stuff like that, where it's one little slip. It's, when I got sober the first time, it was, all right, I'm clean and sober. Well, I can have a beer.
Right.
And turns out that's not true, and now that leads to a long way down the road to, way worse, paths than
right.
I care to remember. So
sure.
Hearing the story about your brother and hearing what you went through and then reading issue 1, I want you to know that it's helping me deal with some stuff too, as a reader.
That's amazing.
So,
that means a lot. I'm really happy that you're sharing that stuff, because
that's incredible.
That's part of what we wanted to do, is kind of remove the stigma around, people feel weird. I mean, you even had to, preface it by like, saying that you're an open book. And I wish more people were about kind of struggling, because then I think you realize that a lot of people are struggling. I mean, everybody, I guarantee you, everybody knows an addict, whether you know it or not, whether you realize it or not.
For sure.
And it's a really, really hard thing to deal with. And it's a hard thing to talk about out loud. And so that, I mean, that's really great. It takes a lot of strength.
Yeah. I ran into a high school teacher of mine, and we were talking about how many students from my graduating class we've lost to drugs and alcohol. And it's a staggering number.
Wow.
Yeah.
From a class of about 300 people, when you're up into the 24 range.
Wow.
Yeah. And you start thinking about how the drug epidemic has hit small communities like mine. And mine's not a small community by any means, but
sure.
I think this book goes a long way towards pointing out that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what your background is, what you're going through. Once the monster has you,
right,
the monster has you. So I wanted to personally give you guys a thank you for that. As we go forward in the book, and no spoilers for anybody. As we go forward in the book, I'm very interested to see how the story plays out, in the sense of, are there more recognizable things for me? You know, am I going to have moments where I've got to put the book down like I did in issue 1, or does it come out the other end for this character? And I think that goes to the realism of the character of Francis. So, as you plot out going forward, are you working towards a definitive end of the story, or are you you know what I mean? Or is it just kind of seeing where the storyline and, you know, your own personal process takes you?
Yeah, I'll let Mike answer that. But before he answers that, as far as plotting out and getting to the end, I want Mike to answer that. But I just wanted to jump in with what you had said about how are you going to be affected by the way that we're telling the story in the future issues. And it's interesting because we really do start to wrap a lot of the larger ideas in a bit of a disguise. They're there, but they're not as open and clear and honest as that scene that Francis has with Trixie in the diner. You can't get more clear and succinct than that. So the ideas are all there, but we start to tell them in a bit of a different way through different characters. Not all of the addiction and all of the other issues we talk about through Francis, they're not all happening just through Francis. The other characters that we start to meet will eventually start to take on those qualities or tell those parts of the story as well. So that's how we're able to blow out the world and build out the world, because they're all telling the same story, essentially. They're all working towards building Francis's character, but they're also telling their own story. But Mike, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. We've been talking a lot lately about the ending. We've always had a definitive idea for the ending, and it's very much in line with how I've been working through things. And I think more of that will be evident next year when people get into the second arc of the story. There's definitely there can't not be feelings in this story.
Sure.
You know, I imagine, and they'll be different and personal for everyone. We put an email in the beginning of the book that people can reach out, and it's just darlingthecomic@gmail.com. And we've had people reach out and just say thanks and share their stories with us.
Yeah.
And you know, that's obviously all private, and we'll never discuss that stuff. But it's nice to connect, because people share something, and I'm like, listen, you know, there's no judgments here. Like here's my story. I was very upfront and honest in the forward of the book. I'm like, this is what's up with me, and I think that's okay. And whatever's going on with you is okay. And if you're working through stuff, I'm proud of you. And if you're not, I'm pulling for you.
Yep.
So there's definitely, we don't want it. We purposely front loaded issue 1 with a lot of the emotion and harder stuff, so that we could really open up a world and get a little bit more fantastical, and kind of put Francis on this ride, because I don't want, you know, that was all the hard stuff that I was talking about before. That was a lot of the stuff that, like, I remember in the beginning, and him working through his addiction, and him being addicted for a very long time, and all those emotions are a lot of that's in issue 1. And a bunch of stuff I loved about him. But moving forward, I wanted to take him to places where I felt like he could succeed.
Yeah.
And really kind of without changing, more than just trying to stay straight for one night. You know, just you know, keep it straight for one night. Just don't. If you find this missing girl, you might really figure this out. And you know,
but that's the most important thing about the story, and it taking place over one night is, you know, our way of saying that's the first step. It's just one day.
Yeah.
Get through one day.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you know, we see in that diner scene with Trixie in the first issue, that I hope everyone who has read so far is loving it. He decides, or fights with himself about it, but he decides to make the right decisions for once. And that's why we meet him on this night. And that's why the narrator pushes the days ahead to that certain day where Francis decided he was going to try to do things right for once. Get through one day. That's it.
Yeah. And we kind of we stop at issue 1 with Todd and I famously, between the both of us, call the red door.
Yeah.
We did our best to. We actually wrote a little bit about how the sausage is made. We wrote this as, we planned it as 4 or 5 100-page ish books. And when we went to SourcePoint, we had the first 100 pages, and we were like, "Hey, we'd like to do 4 of these." And they were like, "That's great. Can you break it up into issues of 20 to 25 pages?" So we had to go back and kind of find. We actually found that we had a lot of natural stopping points and a lot of nice places for cliffhangers that were kind of, I don't know, maybe just we were doing unconsciously.
We were writing it as acts of a play.
Subconsciously.
Yeah, we were writing it as acts of a play. We knew what we were doing. It's just so happened that that's how many acts we made, and that's how many issues they wanted.
Yeah, I guess. So it worked out, with very few, maybe 2 or 3 little pages we wanted to kind of patch in there. But so we won't really have that problem with the next set of stuff, because they're planned as issues, and but because it is all one night, it's pretty much moment to moment, with the exception of
flashbacks that we start to add in and ways of getting the story around and outside of the just one night. But for Francis, it's one night.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So let me ask this question. Has SourcePoint, since you brought it to SourcePoint, you brought it in one format, they want another. You just mentioned it. Have they had any other kind of editorial or any other kind of ideas about things you should do to change the book?
Nope.
To get it ready for release or any of that kind of stuff?
Not really. They just kind of suggested, and funny enough, it's really just based on costs and numbers, that it's more for them. They were like, yeah, it's really just more cost effective if we print them like this and do it like this. And if you put this many pages, then we have to step it up to this weight, and then the cover we have to bind it this way, and it was really math.
Right.
It's really all they cared about. But no, they've been incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
And they've been incredibly complimentary and accessible, which is not something that you can say for a lot of publishers. It's funny. I texted someone one time, like, it was either midnight or after midnight or close, and I had just some random question, and she just got back. He got back to me. So that's we consider ourselves very lucky and fortunate to kind of teamed up with them. They are happy to just, I think, be along for the ride and suggest, like, we might say, hey, what do you guys like better, this cover, the idea, like, hey, like, we're working on this, here's early sketches of a cover, and they might be like, oh, that's cool, or like, hey, maybe try to bring out this a little bit more, but like, it's really, there's no touching of the narrative, there's no touching of panels or suggestions on how we package stuff or do stuff. And and Todd and I have a lot of really crazy ideas coming up for the next 2 or 3 arcs, and they've done nothing but go, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And we were like, oh, are you serious? And they're like, yeah, no, it's not a problem. It's really easy to do, actually.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted like physical things with the book, and like how we want it to look and be different. We don't want to really spoil too much, but there's I don't know. It's like Todd says, it's kind of weird, and it changes as I change and work through this, and as Todd and I talk more about it, and we kind of find more things that we want to bring into it. But we were just like, hey, we want to do this, and we thought they were going to be like, you can't do that. Are you kidding? And that's not cost effective. And immediately they were like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's easy. And we were like,
I love that. That's just another reason to love the guys at SourcePoint. They're like,
they're great.
Like, do your book, but can you? This is cheaper.
Yeah, that was the only thing. Yeah, it was just Matt.
I think the most they've said about the new issues that we're writing now was we can't wait to read them. So that's kind of all you really want to hear from your publisher.
Yeah. I mean, and I love, like, I don't know if you guys follow him on TikTok, but Josh on TikTok, going, hey, I want to do this thing with gilding, but we've never done it this way. So he's like, I'm gonna try it with a Sharpie. And the printer's like, we can do that. So now we get to do this cool thing for this book because I sat here with a Sharpie for 10 minutes.
It's amazing.
Yep.
So that's phenomenal. So to kind of lighten the mood back up just a little bit from where we were a minute ago, I like to ask everybody a couple of questions they can't possibly have prepared for.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. So do you have a favorite Pokemon?
Oh my God. We just asked, you know what? We actually just we got this question on the Super Nintendads Entertainment podcast, and somebody's stealing my material. Someone's stealing your material. We had our number one fan write in and ask that question. I wasn't really prepared, as I'm not prepared now because I don't play a ton of Pokemon. I do. If I had to say, my favorite is Jigglypuff because of the song.
Yeah.
But I brought in my 5-year-old Charlie who had different opinions.
Yep.
And to answer it. And
so he answered for us.
Yeah, he answered it for us.
And he was very verbose. He had a lot of things to say.
He had a lot of things to say about Pokemon. People can check that out.
He had strong opinions.
Yeah, very so. Kids have strong opinions on Pokemon. I just because Jigglypuff has that song that can just get stuck in your head, and it's just literally Jigglypuff over and over again. I've always loved that, and it kind of makes me smile every time.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite.
I like Mr. Mime because I don't really understand much about him, but I just think he's drawn really well, and I from what I understand, he can like shapeshift and stuff. So I think he's really cool.
You're probably, you know what, because he's really you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like someone bumped into you, and then they were like,
if he wore a cape,
right? Exactly.
We'd be right there.
That's you.
Yeah, Mr. Mime's my
cape
guy.
And a sarong. Yes.
Yes.
So okay,
great.
You're stuck on a desert island.
Mm.
You get one book, one record, and one movie.
Oof.
One record, one movie.
All right.
And for you guys, because you're the Super Nintendads, one video game.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Oh my God. I don't know if that makes it any easier. Actually, that might make the question harder.
I'm not totally confident I can do this, but I'm going to jump in so that I can give you some time, buddy.
I appreciate. So you're going to throw yourself on the grenade?
Yes. Don't listen to me. Do some thinking. Okay. All right. Book. Jesus Christ. All right. Video game.
No, the book is the one you have next to you, probably.
It may very well be. Video game. The original Legend of Zelda for Nintendo Entertainment System. Book, King Lear, Shakespeare. Record, The Toasters, Dub 56. And movie, Clockwork Orange.
Are you out of your mind bringing Clockwork Orange onto a desert island?
It's my island. I have no problem with it. Plus, it hits all the things I'm going to need.
What are you, from Braveheart now? It's mine. It's my island.
It's my island. It's my fucking island.
I love that guy.
Chip.
What happened to that guy?
He became this is my book. No, I am the captain now. It's the same character.
Oh, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Book.
Can I answer for you?
No. Book is Slaughterhouse 5.
Yep, I would have said that.
Yeah.
Video games, Tecmo Bowl. I can keep going.
Video game is not Tecmo Bowl.
Wild Woody then, fine.
If you say Mike Tyson's Punch Out, we're ending this interview right now.
No, it's not. Because I don't even know that I've ever beat Tyson.
I know you haven't.
I haven't. I've gotten there and I've gotten destroyed. And I never got to, the free dinner with him. What was the thing we joked about?
The
show in Vegas?
There was a schoolyard rumor that in my school that if you beat Mike Tyson, a phone number came up on the screen. And if you called it, you got Mike Tyson and he invited you to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And we all believed this. Bunch
That
of
would've
7 and
been
8
so
year olds
cool if
just
that was
totally
real.
believing and just trying to beat Tyson every day because of it.
Yeah, we have a whole episode.
Sadly, it's not true.
We have a whole. We
We did a
on
whole
video
episode
games.
on video game rumors. We should do another one of those.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, man, this is hard.
You got 1 out of 4.
Yeah, so I mean, records. It could be at whenever you get me at any time.
Yeah,
during
totally.
my life, like I've had like music for different occasions, different eras.
Mike, we all know this. That's why it's a tough question.
I know it's really tough. I don't know. It's Pet Sounds, maybe.
That's a good one.
Maybe it's Pet Sounds.
It's a good one.
So Slaughterhouse-5 and Pet Sounds, or maybe it's the Village Green Conservation Society. What's that Kinks album? Am I even remembering that one right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We are the Village Green Conservation Society. Yeah, I have to sing it. Or Preservation.
Yeah, preservation.
Yeah, like a Preservation Society. Yeah. God, it's something old either way, like me. So yeah, Slaughterhouse-5, Pet Sounds, or something by the Kinks, probably. Man, video game is really tough. It's probably something that I could like mess around with endlessly. I don't know. Maybe it's Minecraft. And Gabe would totally laugh at me. My son would. I Minecraft because my boss. By the way, totally. But on principle, I won't play it anymore. And he always tries to get me to play again. But Minecraft is like it's just infinite. You can just fuck with it forever. So it's probably something like that, or whatever the latest GTA is, because I could just walk around and pretend to be someone for forever, and I could pretend that I'm not on a desert island, and I could give everybody names, and I could pet a dog that walked up to me or something like that. Whatever I could do.
You could maybe beat it.
I could no. I don't beat games.
Not even on a desert island when you had time.
99.9% complete. I'm not picking up that last hidden package. So, and I worked at Rockstar Games, so I have a love for everything Rockstar. It could be Red Dead. It could be Red Dead. So, and what was the last thing? Movie. Oh my God, movie.
Do you need some time? I can give you mine.
There we go.
Yeah, I need a little time.
So it's American Gods by Neil Gaiman.
Nice.
Okay.
Good choice.
Is the book. The record is it's one of two. It's either Hotel California by the Eagles.
Okay.
Or, and hear me out on this one.
I'm listening.
2112 by Rush.
Okay, cool. No, I love prog rock.
Very different records, but it's one of those two. My movie is The Blues Brothers because it counts as a record.
Oh, okay.
That's really good.
You're right. That's cool.
And in there, I like that.
Yeah, video game is either the original Halo or the original Gears.
Okay.
I'm not a huge video gamer, but that was an era like late high school, early college, where like LAN parties were a thing, and we were all studying IT anyway.
Right.
It's
like we're gonna have this LAN party, but we're gonna also call it our senior thesis.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It was how many computers can you network together?
Can we do the 1632?
My movie is My Blue Heaven with Steve Martin.
There you go.
It's great.
That's a good answer.
There's some My Blue Heaven I think that we haven't explored yet for Arc 3.
Yeah.
I feel like My Blue Heaven is where the theater clicks.
Maybe. I absolutely love that movie. And it was also one of my brother's favorites too. We used to quote it all the time. So it's kind of a double. It's a twofer there. I get a little bit of nostalgia with it, and I get a movie that makes me laugh.
Yep.
So, and you get Steve Martin, who's just great and everything.
Right. So we got a couple minutes left. Other than Arcs 2 and 3 of Darling, which you've alluded to, is there anything else you're working on that you can tell us about?
Doesn't
necessarily have to be comics, just other stuff.
Yeah, we release a new show every week for the Super Nintendads Entertainment Podcast. We have 3 different kind of formats on there, so there's always something we're working on, whether it's just a show where we kind of twaddle about things that are bothering us that week, or we have the kids on and show them things that we grew up with, or kind of creating our own version of This American Life called This American Sprite, where we kind of send up This American Life by focusing it very seriously on video game characters.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think Mike and I's heads are so deep in Darling right now that everything we're thinking of externally, creatively, especially together, just goes back to it. Possible one-shots to expand the universe a bit more, possible prequel stories for some of the characters that you'll be introduced to, and especially issue 2, they'll stick with it us for most of the series. So it's really just, it's hard to focus on anything else right now. I don't know how we could even think about having anything outside of Darling or the show and our jobs and our kids and our families. So not really anything other than that at the moment. Unless Mike tells me differently.
I don't think we have any more time.
There's no bandwidth. Yeah.
Yeah, the bandwidth is not there. I think we have to wrap Darling and everything we want to do with it. And then I don't know. It'd be tough. We definitely have ideas for other comics, and I have an idea for a book.
And personally, Mike and I have mentioned it before. Houdini might not be dead either.
That's true. We wrote the whole second issue.
Yep, and there's only one group of people who wanted to see Houdini rise again. And that was the guys at Source Point. So I wouldn't ever count out Houdini, especially now that we are Source Point published. So there's always the possibility of that as well.
We'll add Houdini to, what is it, Up the River? Travis's book that he wrote one issue of and never put out a second one?
Yep. Maybe we'll just have them do a crossover.
Well, it's save Up the River, bring back Houdini.
Yeah, exactly.
We can start those hashtags.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So where can people follow you? Where can they support your work? All of that kind of stuff.
Go ahead, Mike.
So a few different. Okay, so darlingthecomic.com is pretty up to date with everything. Also, The Real Francis Darling on Instagram, at The Real Francis Darling on Instagram. That's me. Facebook.com/darlingthecomic. That's pretty up to date. Twitter has a lot of stuff on it from me. I'm just at Fleizach, just my last name, Fleizach.
Mm-hmm.
What else, Todd? SuperNintendads.com is a thing, and usually has the most up-to-date show, but you can also I don't think it does right now, and that's on me. But you can also find Super Nintendads anywhere you listen to podcasts. The Super Nintendads Entertainment Podcast. What am I forgetting, Todd?
Super Nintendads on Instagram as well. We have Darling the Comic on Twitter as well. I don't know if you mentioned that.
No, but
we do have that.
That's because mainly I do it from my personal.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of everywhere in so many different forms, but the two probably best places for both things is darlingthecomic.com and supernintendads.com. They kind of link to everything else, and maybe we'll spend some time this weekend making sure that they link to everything that they're supposed to, just to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Right, exactly.
All right. Then last question.
Okay.
The last question I ask everybody. Ultimate Nerd Garage. You get one spaceship and one car from all of pop culture. What do you put in your garage?
Slave One and a DeLorean.
They're changing it. They're not calling it Slave One anymore.
They're not calling it the Slave One anymore.
I'm calling it Slave One while I still got a chance.
Yeah, there you go. It's definitely...
The new name is not good.
What are they calling it? Boba Fett's Starship?
Starship, yeah. Boba Fett's Starship. Yep.
Fair enough.
That's
a
terrible name.
Yeah,
really
that's
creative.
Real catchy. That'll look great on a Kenner Toys.
I'll tell you what. As much as I love Slave One, and I think it's the greatest designed ship in all of the Star Wars universe, I absolutely love Luke's Land Cruiser. I think it's one of the coolest things ever. Mostly because it looks like a 70s car that floats. But I'm going Slave One and the DeLorean.
Can
Final
I tell
answer.
you guys? I already have an artist working on the Jefferson Starship record cover.
That's great.
But with Boba Fett on it.
Great.
So
Love
it's
that.
Boba Fett on the Starship, and it just says Starship across the top.
That's really funny. That's really funny.
I like that. I think I agree with the DeLorean, and I think mine would probably be an X-wing.
Yeah.
I just think X-wings are so freaking cool.
I love X-Wings.
I've bought so many Lego X-Wings.
Yeah.
Like it's just I don't know. Everything
Kyle,
about the sound, everything. I just love them.
What's yours, Kyle?
Mine was also the slave one.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Well,
Mark
because I have
Gotham.
a small garage and it stores flat.
Okay. That's one of the things I like about it. I love that it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Stephen King's Christine.
Oh, that's a great book.
Because then I don't have to worry about my enemies. She just does it.
That's true. That's right.
So,
yeah.
That's pretty good.
yeah. But
That's the best kind of revenge. Is revenge that you wanted but didn't actually call for. That's fantastic.
Right. Didn't do anything about. Just kind of
that person's gone now, and that's great. And I have zero guilt.
Zero guilt.
Right. No. So.
And and that's one of the books he actually ended well. And I love Stephen King. That boy does not know how to end a book.
No.
Why? Because they all go on forever and never, and then it's like,
right. I think I'll wrap it up here. It's like here.
Right. Right. Stephen King is certainly guilty of the dinner's ready ending.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Totally.
All right, Michael, Todd, thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking to me about this. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Kyle. This was a blast.
I've wanted to do this since I first heard the pitch for the book. So
cool.
This has been been awesome. So
it's awesome.
Well, I can't wait until
pleasure.
You get your hands on number 2, because I think number 1 we absolutely love and we adore, and it's the heart of the story. And then number 2 brings everything else that we wanted to share with this book together. So I just can't wait for people to see where it's all heading.
Maybe I'll have to drive up to Saginaw and steal one.
Okay. I don't even know if they have them, but sure. Yeah, go for it.
Hey, I'll just camp out till they show up. That's
cool. That's great. I did that with the Wii.
Yeah.
I went to the Wii midnight launch.
Yep.
I worked in an electronics mega store when the Wii launched, and that was the moment I swore off Nintendo consoles until the Switch came out. And I was like, I was wrong. I lied.
You gotta forgive.
There was some, it was an incredibly successful Blue Ocean strategy that only Nintendo could have accomplished. So they do need to be applauded for it. But yeah, there's not a lot of games that people are going back to the Wii for, are there?
Man, no. How many times can you bowl?
Yep.
So
fair enough.
All right, fellas. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for watching. Go out, buy Darling, follow the Super Nintendads podcast. Go to darlingthecomic.com. I almost had a brain fart there, but I didn't.
You saved yourself.
And make sure you follow these guys everywhere and support this book. Thanks again. And stay tuned for whatever's next after this on Friday. Yeah. See you soon.
Bye, guys.